Hello, I'm Steve. A little about myself. I'm a retired law enforcement officer with 20 years of service. I began my career in the jail, worked the road, and became an investigator. During my career, my training consisted of everything from SWAT to becoming a state certified crime scene technician. I've investigated crimes from thefts to homicides. After retiring and becoming aware of true crime and web sleuths, I started my channel for web sleuths to better understand the perspectives of law enforcement. Not only do we cover true crime, I go out into the field and assist families who have lost loved ones to homicide and their cases are considered cold. Join me as we look and bring attention to these critical cases. Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm glad to see everybody here. I know it's been a while. I've been out on the road working some cold cases, and I wish to thank all our members and our community, the foundation, everyone who supports us, that allows us to go out and do that cold case work. We'll have some shows in coming days speaking of that. But tonight, if you're new to the channel, welcome. While you're here, we'll have a presentation. During that presentation, if you have any questions, just throw them in chat. And while you're in chat, be mindful, be respectful of the families, mods, and each other. And but tonight, of course, back to creating a little content on a case that we're all familiar with regarding the homicides of Abby and Libby in Delphi, Indiana. If you haven't, if you don't know of this case, absolutely, it's horrific. Two young children whose lives were taken by a monster. And of course, law enforcement arrested an individual after 5 years of investigation. And of course, we've seen what's going through the courts regarding Richard Allen and the motions made. When I finally got back down here to Florida yesterday, and I went and did a little research. And upon looking at updates on Richard Allen, something struck me as far as, and it's something that will be argued and discussed in great detail in the coming days. And that's going to be visiting the crime scene. Should the jury go? Will it be allowed to? Will the jury be allowed, once seated and paneled at some point during the trial, allowed to go to that crime scene? Will Richard Allen also be allowed to be escorted to that crime scene? How would that go? What would the court orders be? And that's things that we're going to be discussing tonight. If you have any questions regarding that, or your opinions of, do you think that he should go? Do you think just the jury should go? And because we see in other cases, such as the Murdoch case that was over in Carolinas, that the jurors went there, and one of the individuals saw something from his knowledge base as far as the threshold and that being a trip factor. And could that have led to him tripping, falling, as far as Alex Murdoch and was one of those shots. And that's something that we have to look at, and the value of going to a crime scene. And I'm going to speak a lot on that tonight, for the fact that in my career, in my life, visiting crime scenes is absolutely a necessity. And from no investigator would be able to work a crime scene without visiting and seeing it in its most visual and being able to take in all the observations, the not only just the visuals, but what can you hear, what is the terrain, and everything that you would notice about an environment. You know, when we go out and we're walking a trail, you take in the bird noises, you hear the traffic, you hear people mowing their yards. You look and you see residences off in the distance, up on the hills. And that's the value of going to a crime scene, to get that full feel of what's going on, while you may not see it in the exact state that it was on a given day of such a crime, but it's extremely important. And we'll be getting into that a little bit. But if you have any information regarding this case, absolutely make sure that law enforcement prosecutors, defense, whatever authorities that you have access to. If you don't have just 911, make sure they have that information so that they can have justice for Abby and Libby, for the fact that without all that information, that's the only way that justice can truly be sought and found for any victim. All right. Before we get in there, let's see what's going on in chat. Like always. Hello, Molly. You became a YouTube member. Molly's been a YouTube member. She's a mod also. But she's been here quite a while. And but she just renewed. It does that sometimes. Hello, Roxy. Good to see you. I'm glad you're here. Oh, yeah. Molly gets her blue light. Let me get my head out of the way. There's your blue light, Molly. Thank you for being a member. Hello, there's Roxy, Louise, Shelly. Good to see you. Louise going to go play some ball. You and Mrs. Steve, she absolutely loves any type of sports, or anything that has competition, from racing to football. All right. Oh, Southern Gal has been a member for 19 months. Thanks for everything you do. Love this community. Thank you. Without this community, like I said, we wouldn't be able to go out and do what we do, even this last trip. I'm still a little bit tired from that trip. A lot of miles. I think when I turned in the vehicle today, just a little bit over 3,000 miles that I traveled last week. And but like I said, we had some really good information that came up, and I was able to have some good meetings with the proper authorities regarding some of the cold cases, and I wish to thank everybody of that. Hello, Olivia, too. Good to see you as always. Oh, me. Happy. Olivia, too, just happy Thursday. It ain't too far to that really special happy Thursday. I like Thanksgiving. And Pitbull Mom, good to see you. And, of course, here's Barbara Hall. And we'll be having an update about her case, and she'll be a guest on my show. And we'll be discussing some of the things that went on during the presentation, the preparation for what happened last week, and also some of the investigations, so that while we can only share limited information because it is in the hands of the authority, but we can share some, and I'm looking forward to see and hear her viewpoints on things, and looking forward to that. And if you don't know who Barbara Hall is, she is the mother of Timmy Dees, which is a case I've been working on for quite a while, and we recently developed some new information and presented that to the prosecutor. Copper Horse, good to see you. As always, there's Paula. Good to see you. There's Jill Moser. And let's see. Nan R. There's good to see you. Just trying to see a few people in chat. Like I said, if you have any questions, hello, Angela. Good to see you. Mustang 65. Just throw them in there. Hello, DP. Witchcraft. Thank you. It was a long trip. I only slept in one parking lot on my way back. I was running behind schedule, and whenever I left the Midwest, I had to make up time to get back on schedule. So only had to sleep in one parking lot for a few hours, but got me back on schedule. Pitbull Mom, do you have to be a member to gift a membership? I don't know. I don't know what that process is. I'm a great YouTube creator. Oh, man. I'm sure someone will be able to answer that. And here's Marion Tate. Also, I was able and had the pleasure of spending some time with Marion, who is Barbara's sister, and her husband, James. And we had a really good family meeting. I've spent some time at the Capitol during the awareness for the missing. So that was good. Hello, Cryptex. Good to see you. Check out the Cryptex channel, just like Southern Gal's channel. Some great creators out there. Uh, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Steve, it's nice to see. Looks like Mr. Steve's skin looks like the sun god is bit him. Yes, I've been out in the sun. I've been working outside for a little bit. All right. Well, let's get into this a little bit about what's going on with the Delphi. Um, some of the articles that if you look in and look up the latest updates, of course, we see that the defense put in a request initially of the jurors being able to visit the crime scene. And then, of course, they added to it that Richard Allen also should have access to that. So that's where the defense stands. And the prosecution says, no, they don't really want the visit to the crime scene. And ultimately, as everything happens in the courts, when you have this standoff between these two, the judge says, let's wait until after the jury is seated. Now, my opinion of this, I'm absolutely on the defense's side with this. For the fact, like I said, no investigator could accurately investigate a crime scene without having access to that crime scene, those notes, and making those notes, being there first, hands, boots on the ground, looking at the notes of other, even if you're coming in on later to reevaluate it, as we saw with the individual that during those 3 days of hearings of the expert that came out of the Tennessee body farm, that I think his name is Cicero or something like that, that he took those notes, went to the crime scene himself. He just didn't read the notes. And there's reasons that he went to that crime scene because, of course, he's just doing an analysis of what was done at the crime scene. But he didn't sit in his office. He went to that crime scene for it. It's such valuable information, boots on the grounds, looking at it, because when you're looking at a 2D photograph or you're looking at a video or you're looking at any type of image, you're not getting the full depth and the full all your senses are not being fed information. And that's the importance of going to that crime scene and seeing where is your attention drawn to, what areas are visible to not only line of sight going out, but line of sight coming in. And there's only one way of doing that. And so I'm on the defensive side with this, that absolutely I believe that the jury should go. Do I think Richard Allen should go? No. I do not think that he should go, but I do believe that the jury should go. Now, whatever the reasoning of the prosecution, whichever way, right now, the judge is waiting. And what does it mean to let's wait until after the jury is seated? Is there going to be special considerations as far as what happens if you have a 70-something-year-old a senior citizen, or you have someone with special needs or a handicap that's sitting on that jury? Then the logistics change as far as getting everyone there of those 12 jurors and those alternates. How will all that work out? So there's a lot of considerations by the court. Jonathan, that's a little bit off topic. Let's stick with tonight, but I thank you for your question. But we'll get with that later. Let's see here. Mustang 65. Let's see. Get caught back up with chat. Sharon Edwards. And I'm getting emails as we speak. Molly says at Cryptics, welcome. Enjoyed your show with Steve. Yes, it was an honor to be on his show. Appreciate it. He didn't rake me over the coals too hard. CJK, good to see you. Louise, $10. Appreciate your work and happy to support your channel. This is a confusing case. Thanks for covering it. Yes, that is very true for the fact that there was a lot of confusion during the investigation. And even when people look at all the other potential third-party suspects and with the Kleins, with Logan, all of that activities and some of the affidavits and the search warrants and the interviews. And then when we have which way the defense went with the odiness, or whatever you would call that, their religious beliefs of the Odinites or whatever they are. I've never heard of them until this case. That when you look at it, there's a lot of points that will make you sit back and say, hold on a minute, is it possible? And I appreciate that the defense has brought up these for the fact that the state will have to work hard to prove their case, and they should work hard to prove their case. It shouldn't just be that you and panel 12 people sit there and it's just a rubber stamp of conviction. We don't want that. We want the state to go up there and absolutely prove their case. And I absolutely want the defense to have every opportunity to force the hand of the state to prove it. Because if Richard Allen is the one responsible, it should be proven beyond all reasonable doubt. Absolutely. Let's see here. Hello, Lala. Good to see you. And yes, Mustang 65 on the floor 4. Thank you. We mustn't forget those young, innocent children. Hey, there's Gravit, Randy. If y'all don't know Randy Gravit, check him out. I don't know what his channel name is. He changes it every now and then. But Randy is if you don't know who Randy Gravit is, if you ever go to any of the walks, their memorials, you'll see Randy. Great, big, huge, walking heart of a man. Absolutely wonderful person that knows a lot about this case, and actually is the one that first got me interested in YouTube and in the Delphi case. So I thank Randy for that. Let's see. Let's see here. Lisa 58, good to see you. But all right, so let's go on down in here. But the crime scene visits, and like I said, it's just not for the crime scene visits is, not just for the investigators. The defense has been there. The prosecutor has been there. Everyone that is involved in this case has been there, other than probably the judge and the jury. And of course, there's a lot of things that, and you only see crime scene visits. It has to be some absolutely horrible, tragic event or a certain type of crime, because juries just don't go out to see a burglary. They don't go visit on some of the smaller crimes, armed robberies and things. They'll let those off-site means of seeing a crime scene, such as photography, videos, schematics, drawings, all of that you can pretty well get that information to a jury where they can understand. But this case is so complex that we have a crime scene from the moment that Richard Allen made contact with Abby and Libby when they were first abducted. That's the start of this crime scene. This crime scene extends from there to the moment that down the hill, so that they can understand and see that area, and how would they evaluate, because if they can stand there and they see the abduction point and they look around and see what the alternatives, what were the possibilities of where the girls could flee, what was restraining them, what was keeping them from fleeing, what was happening, and down the hill, what does that mean, and how could you get down that hill? And there's only one way that they can truly understand it, and it's not from a simple photograph that is two-dimensional, because you don't see the depth, you don't see those grades, and you don't see those angles. It's extremely hard to tell that story in photographs, and that's the importance of going to visit the scene, and the importance of the defense having that opportunity to show what their angle is of why it is would be hard for one individual to do this. And while the prosecution will have to pick their game up to show how one individual can do all of this. But all these crime scene visits is that they educate those jurors. They're affected so that the jurors have a better understanding of the terrain, the location where it's at, because some of these jurors may, while some of them may know something about this case, and they may even know something about this location, and they may have even visited it. It doesn't matter if a juror's ever been there before, because some of them may, but it's whether or not they can listen to the evidence. And right now they have no idea of guilt or innocent, but they're open-minded enough to listen to this case and take what is presented to them, and only what is presented to them, to either find innocence or guilt of the one accused. And so with them going there, they'll be able to see that terrain. And if you haven't been there, and like I said, I've done many videos on it. You can go across YouTube. Great channels out there. It's created some wonderful videos on this. But even those videos, truly, when I watched them, until Mrs. Steve and I visited that location, you could not, I did not appreciate it as much as when I went there, walked those areas, went to the crime scene from different locations, directions, and traversed that terrain in both daylight and dark. And it's absolutely probably one of the most hostile nighttime terrains. And I've been in some pretty bad areas as far as hostile, threatening, that you could become injured. And it is it meets all of that even the times that when we were doing night navigation during training exercises, there was none of it that was, that was any more harsh than what this area is. That actually, I don't even know of all the training I did on night nav, I don't think any of them had the higher risk factor of what this area is, for the fact that if we had to do that at night under some of our training guidelines, we would have had guys get hurt. They would have been injured officers. And of course, we don't like injured officers during training, but that's how severe this terrain is. Now, should the jury, if it brought up about night navigation and all that, would they be able to go there at night? No, they're not going to be able to be taken down there at night. But in daytime environment, with the safety concerns and what will take to get them down there, wherever they can go, whether it be the trailhead of where the witness at the Myers location, walking that trail, going to where you first come in contact with the bridge, all of that can be accomplished at any time. But once you get over there to the other side of the bridge where the abduction occurred, and down that hill, and then getting to the crime scene where the recovery of Abby and Libby occurred, is a extremely hostile on that side. On the Logan property, you have to be extremely careful. And there is a more sloping ease of access to that area if you come from behind Logan's house versus coming from the cemetery or coming from the bridge. If you come from the bridge, I walked it, and it's pretty steep. But the visitation, like I said, you get the terrain, you get location, you hear those sounds, you get line of sight, you see the remoteness, you see what housing and residential buildings or farms are around, and you get to see and understand the witnesses that are testifying of what they saw, and there's only one way of doing that. And understanding these witnesses and their testimony, the visitation is going to just make them have a much clearer understanding of everything, of the physical evidence, credibility of the witnesses, credibility of the defendant if he should take the stand, understanding of everything. They'll be less confused. They'll understand the relative relationships of every part of that trail, from where he parked. And why would someone park there in that certain condition? Why would they walk that trail? Where did they meet those witnesses? What were distractors near there? Sound of traffic? What's going on at those benches where they would have, where Richard Allen says that he met those three girls earlier on the trail. And then, like I said, it'll allow that jury to evaluate the situation, and when they render that verdict, it's more of an informed decision. All right, let's get back into the chat here before I go much further. And let's see here. See if any questions are coming up there, Sharon. Pitbull Mom says right now it's finally crisp fall weather here in Midwest Indiana. Now, I think during the trial, they won't be able, that if even they went there, the foliage will be different. There will be a big difference in foliage. There'll still be leaves unless it goes further than those 5 to 6 weeks of trial, and it gets past Thanksgiving. Whereas in Georgia, typically after Thanksgiving, a lot of leaves are gone, and that would probably be the same up there. I've been up there in October, and there's still a lot of foliage in that area, more foliage than I thought would be. I thought they would be several weeks ahead of Georgia as far as leaf fall. That wasn't the case the year I was there. So it wouldn't be identical. And Nightbots, welcoming everybody. That's good to see. Oh, Olivia too. $5 Steve, treat yourself to a cup of coffee. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. I drank a lot of coffee this last trip. I can tell you that. Had some long days, long nights. Be going back on the road next week, midweek. We have a huge trip out west. Right now, getting all my logistics together, getting my team ready to meet with them out there. And we got looking forward to that work. It'll be my final trip for the year, I believe. Southern Gal, True Crime says, True Crime Web, how much do you think visiting a crime scene can sway a jury one way or another? I know all crime scenes are different. I think on a very complex case, you absolutely have to have them there. Not to sway the jury, but to make sure that jury fully understands the witnesses' testimonies of where they met, what happened, give them credibility, understanding of the physical evidence, that if they go there, how could that bullet, was it recovered then? What is that ground debris? How many sticks are in that location, in that area? How easy would it be to gather up those sticks and branches that were placed on Abby and Libby, and understanding even the creek, that creek embankment, because when we hear the evidence, if this goes to trial and we start understanding the reporting of what was the route taken by Abby and Libby and the offender to that location. They crossed that creek. Did they climb that bank? Were there certain tracks found, noted? Were there any signs of a struggle along the path that they took or on that embankment? Was there coming out of that creek and going up that and getting to that plateau? And once they got up to that plateau, what evidence would they have to evaluate? What evidence could they see if there were certain things recovered from the creek? What is the location from where the victims' bodies were found to where the evidence that might have been recovered from the creek? And so it's not so much to sway a jury, but to better inform them so that in their own mind, when they get back there and it's time to deliberate, that they have a basis of not just arguing about a simple two-dimensional photograph or a video or whatever evidence is going to be brought into it, but they can sit there and argue that, well, you remember going down that hill, or you saw where the cemetery is, you saw those steep embankments, you saw the steep embankment that if you came from the bridge on one side, or you where is the on the Webb property across the road, the residence, can you see that house? What part of their landscape can you see? That road that goes up to the Webb property, and you can evaluate it, look at it, and understand it, so that they can argue those facts of different points that would be brought up during this trial. It's absolutely critical. But now there are also going to be some issues with the court as far as the logistics. Because when I travel, just getting me and a team somewhere is a 4 or 5 man team. The logistics on it is, far greater than what most people realize. But now you have to try to figure out how you're going to transport everything from security, how you're going to make sure the jury's interactions with people that are transporting them, what type of discussions will be going on, what would be the court instructions from the court to these jurors of their behavior, what they should be doing, who they should, if they have a question or if something comes up, who are they to speak to, and what can they ask and what can they speak about. All that stuff will be laid out. And it's complex, and that's only if the jury is allowed to go, for the fact that Judge Gull says, we're going to see until we seat this panel, then we'll decide. And I think that's going to have a lot to do with, if we get a bunch of 40 and 50-year-olds that can easily walk or get to that area, that more than likely will be. But if it's handicapped or senior citizens, or there's going to be a physical inability of some of the jurors not to go, then I don't see it happening. But I do see it happening if everybody's in reasonable physical shape, because it's not an easy way to go. It's not easy to get down there. Let's see here. D. Ashley, good. Sorry I'm late. You're not late. Yes, I agree with you, Sharon. It doesn't seem like a good idea for Richard Allen, a need to visit the crime scene. Just my opinion. Absolutely, for the fact that while certain attention would be given, but the drawback is that you would have a security detail, and a lot of things would be going on, and we don't know what Richard Allen's ultimate ulterior motives may be at any shape or any point. And so there would be a lot of distractions if Richard Allen was there. Doesn't mean that they won't, in this day and age, that they can't live stream something to him wherever he is in a secured location. While he may have visual abilities to watch what's going on, him being there as in a physical, no, that's just my personal opinion. Will that happen? I have no idea. But yeah, there's a lot of things about visiting the crime scene as far as what could go on, what could go wrong, from people out there protesting and securing the route, securing where would they park, securing the access to get them down there to the crime scene, what parts of the crime scene would they be able to visit. And this is absolutely allows a lot of things that can go wrong. And the jurors' behavior while they're en route and everything, or other persons that may have motives to try to influence a jury. So there's a lot of things that can go wrong with a jury visiting a crime scene. And of course, I'm sure they would try to take every countermeasure to ensure that did not occur. But I think it's worth the risk. I really do. I really hope that they get a chance to go to that crime scene. Because, of course, you can look at this. It has everything that we've learned about this crime scene, that we have the bridge trail, we have the abduction site, got homicide, we got the trail access, the cemetery, the Harvest Store camera, Freedom Bridge, CPS parking. You got everything on here. But what does it really tell you about what's going on there at any moment during the daylight hours? You're looking at something that is just simply pointing arrows. And, you know, until you walk that trail and you physically experience the time it takes and what are you looking at, you know, what brings your attention to certain points on that trail, and where would you know, just understanding is, was he somewheres that, what are the possibilities of him being able to hide off trail? And of course, you need almost near-like conditions. And that may be one of the things that the judge is waiting on, to see what those conditions are, for the fact that we really need those physical conditions of what it was like in February. And if we have enough leaf fall and have an early winter and fall leaf pattern, that they may be able to get closer to what that crime scene looked like. And that may be playing a part in the judge's thought process. Just don't know. See through. Good to see you. Mother of Dragons. And let's see here. Thank you, Olivia, too, on the foundation. Appreciate that. Let's see here. Junior Johnson. He's from Kentucky tonight. Junior's Kentucky and Michigan. And Nanar is not being near the area. I don't have any idea what it looks like. The bridge looks so narrow, and I can't picture the area where the crime took place. And that is absolutely that there's going to be jurors that are exactly like Nanar, that they don't know what it looks like. They don't know what it feels like. But you can walk out there from this new improvements of the bridge, look at the old section of the bridge, get some kind of understanding. Go to the other side of the bridge. They have access of it from the several different areas from the property owners. And will they be able to gain access through that and see what it looks like? Can it be done? Absolutely. But even walking that trail and being able to see what the witness that went out there and says, I saw an individual on platform 1. And walking that trail, and that there's this critical T intersection of what I call a T intersection, of where you can stand at this area and you can see the bridge, pretty much the whole length of the bridge, and you can look all the way up to the entry point of the Myers parking lot, of where someone could come in and be on that trail. And so that you could let 2 young victims pass you by, or if you met them on that trail while you're following the other witness, and you get to this point, you can see if there's anyone coming in your directions. That would be a critical point of recognition for some of these, or the possibility that jurors might recognize this and look at it and have that understanding that if there was no one coming and you're looking up that trail for several hundred feet, that you would have an understanding that, yes, that gives you a window of opportunity to turn and stalk and approach your targets if you at this point decide to target these 2 young victims. And when you look at it from this standpoint, you know, what type of image is this? It just shows you a wooded line, 2-dimensional of, oh, here's the creek, here's the bridge. Over here is where they were abducted. Over here is where the crime scene. It doesn't give you the feel of it. And that's the dangers of what these photographs do. They don't give you the life experience, the full experience of being on those scenes. And that's how come I travel to these crime scenes whenever I work these cases. It doesn't matter if it's as while Barbara's in chat with Timmy D's, been to that crime scene several times. Durante Martin, been to that crime scene several times. I've got another case out regarding Doug Till. Haven't been to that crime scene yet, but I will be going up there at some point whenever we get the case file or the information on it. But it's critical to go there and see what's going on, have a better understanding. And this is the difference, that you look at this picture and you don't see the grades and the steepness and the inclines. Whereas when you go to a topo map such as this, and you see all these little signs or these little lines, the closer the lines are, the steeper the embankment. So if you have, whereas you can see over here where it says creek on to the right side, you see an area that there's a lot of difference between two lines. That means it's flat. But when you start seeing those lines are very close, that indicates drop and steepness. And so when you see them almost come to a single point, that shows you the steepness of that area. And whereas this doesn't show any type of inclines, you can't tell anything about it. When you look at this topo from the Delphi Cemetery all the way down to the creek, you can see where some of those lines are extremely steep. You see how far the lines are apart when you're on that road, how gradual it is. And you can see where bridges are and things, and why there are bridges, and where the trail parallels up on the left-hand side. You see where it says deer, but right there, it's almost like a cliff. When you're on that trail, you look over that embankment, it's almost straight down. As you can see, the topo markings shows you the steepness of that area. And then as you come on down towards where the railroad crossing is, where the blue flag is. And then the area where the crime scene was taped off, in that relatively flat area. And on the topo map, it's if you came down from the cemetery where it says top center 12 o'clock, has road Delphi Cemetery, and you see the steepness. You get next to the creek, you see the differences of the gradual. Right there at the edge of the creek, you can see where that plateau is, and it's on that plateau where this crime scene was taped off, relatively flat. Even in this picture on the left-hand side, top left-hand corner, you can see where the incline takes off and starts going uphill, and it's almost like a perfect bowl. All right, but this is where we have to decide as they present this. Is Richard Allen the one? Of course, in the probable cause, and has been charged with this case, innocent until proven guilty. But they are saying that he's the lone wolf. They have probable cause. They've taken it to a jury, and what will ultimately be decided by that jury, I think, will play upon that the jury really needs to go to that crime scene. I can't state that enough, and I hope that they are allowed to go there. I really do. But we'll just have to wait and see. All right. Let me see about what's going on in chat. I think in most jurisdictions, the defendant has the right to go to any area, but I don't know how it would be here. I don't either. I don't know anything about Indiana. And I know that it could be extremely distracting for the fact that we're not, because certain security things have to be in place when you're dealing with an individual that's high risk, high danger. They're going, if you're into an open terrain next to a creek, the abilities to control an individual will play a huge role. I've been on those security details, whereas in a courtroom, of course, you can disguise some of those restraints, but the braces or the shock belts, that if you use certain, that if he's there and he starts some type of uproar or something, that if you shocked him and he fell off one of these cliffs, what does that cause? What type, or if he just simply fell, or he decided to jump off one of these steep inclines or jump into the creek. There's a lot of things that are considerations when you're talking about individual that is and has access to certain things, or could possibly harm himself, that will be taken into consideration. It's just not open and close that law enforcement is going to be holding him. There's certain things that when you're on that security detail and you're in front of that jury, you really have to be very careful how you handle that individual. You can't, whenever we on certain high profile, high risk individuals that were charged with homicides, being on that security detail, you look like an attorney. You're sitting there with the client just right behind him at the at his defense table. And, while you see some courts, you have these uniforms, individuals. Our jurisdiction required that, we're going to make sure that the jury can't tell that we're not part of the defense team, regardless if they realized it or not. And I don't know how Indiana will handle that, but there's a lot of security issues about taking an individual of this importance, magnitude, threat value, because if he is the one that's responsible for these homicides, he's an extremely dangerous individual. Lala says, I think the actual scene of the unaliving is too challenging, but absolutely no reason not to take the jury down the development trail to the beginning and onto the bridge. Yes, and that may be what the judge does. Even if they are certain individuals that wouldn't be able to walk down the embankments or get to those areas or look at them, yes, and that may be some middle ground that they reach. Olivia, too, and this is a good point, Olivia says, in my opinion, the crime scene after almost 6 years looks very different. There's certain parts of it. The trail is extremely different from the pictures I saw when it originally occurred to the developments that have occurred since then. So, yes, there are certain parts of that crime scene, and even where the abduction site is, it's grown up a lot more. The trees, the road bed is has deteriorated. It's not in the same condition. So there are some changes that have occurred. And this is a good point. Is that something the judge will consider? Absolutely. DP says, if they're going to the crime scene, then in all fairness, they should also see the death marks he made the girls go on from the end of the bridge. Let the jury know the absolute fear they face. And I saw a prosecutor one time that, and this is a good point, because I saw a prosecutor where we had 2 victims that were abducted and in a large metropolitan area and brought to our jurisdiction. And of course, one homicide occurred. The other victim was able to escape, but they had to ride in the trunk of a vehicle for 50-something miles. And the prosecutor went and took a camera, closed it up in the trunk, and played that darkness of that camera in the trunk, making those turns and coming to the crime scene all the way up to the moment that the trunk was open. And that was allowed in court. So, yes, there is some truth about that. Let the jury know the absolute fear they faced, because that was a powerful impact on that jury. but it was something that the courts decided that they should allow, and they did allow. Let's see. For Steve, what's the best way to up a reward? When does the FBI give rewards? I'm sure they have criteria for it, but I think we saw with the Delphi case that there were certain professional athletes that even upped the reward when this case first went on to gather information. And so you always have, whereas if certain people have ties with the community, or they show an interest in it, that they'll bring that those reward funding to the table. And but I don't know what the protocol about what the reasoning of when FBI gives rewards or whatever. That's a good question. I'll have to look at that. Sensei, good to see you. Oh, Mother of Dragons, 499 super sticker. Thank you. Appreciate your support. All right. Truffles is a new member. Thank you. Appreciate your support. There you go, blue light. I'm way behind in chat. Steve, why do you think RA should not go to the crime scene? It's those security issues and reasons of why I don't believe that he should go. That's just my personal feelings about it, because there's how you can do and take certain measures, but you have to restrict and guarantee that we're not going to have an individual that at some point may choose self-harm by police. And we can't give him that opportunity, that if he wants self-harm by police, that we allow that to happen. And that's just one of the reasons that I don't want him to be there. Afton Farad, good to see you. Miranda Lee, as always, good to see you. Try and get caught up. Hope I don't miss anybody. Boston Christian, good to see you. Let's see. Malahari, hello. Good to see you with your new name. Dark Sacred Night. Mr. Steve, will those on the jury be able to ask questions and communicate with prosecutor or defense attorneys? That would be addressed by the court. And of course, there's certain communications that can be made if the court allows, but that will all be set by the judge. And it would be strictly adhered to for the fact that we don't want certain communications to occur if they have, but the judge will, if the judge allows it, everything that can happen or could happen or will happen, they will try to be prepared for all those communications, and but that would be set by the court. Let's see here. Good question. Junior says, will Richard Allen be there? I don't think so, but that doesn't mean anything. Just because I think it don't mean anything. I think a lot of things. Oh, me. If it goes to trial, I'm hoping it does. I mean, we're getting there. Let's see here. Could the jury go to the scene on their own time if the judge rules against taking the jury? I'm assuming they won't be sequestered from day one. No, they'll have certain things and and certain orders that they are given about going out and trying to gather your own information or certain things. Everything has to be presented to that jury in an environment under the eyes of the court. So I think there's been other times where juries members have done this, and it creates issues. Manhart said, I have balance problems, so I wouldn't do well in that area as you described it, Steve. And I'm making enough excuses. I don't even live in that state. Yes, yeah. I did some foolish things when I was younger as far as jumping out windows and off the top of buildings, being held by a rope. C3 says, True Crime Web. So you agree nobody was walking around in the dark at 4:30 a.m. to turn the phone on. Yes, I do not believe that's true. Hello, Red Queen. I'm late, but I'm here. Thank you. Yes, the fall pattern is starting, but hopefully, um, that will be something that the judge may consider is that the foliage isn't accurate enough and it doesn't match close enough. I don't know if that's what the judge will do, but you never know. Junior Johnson, will people be watching the jury if they go to the crime scene? Absolutely. They'll have a security detail that if they have access to it, it will be secured before they get there. The route to the scene will be secured before they get there. They'll be escorted there. They'll be escorted away, and it will be under total control. It won't be any social event. It will be absolutely everything about it would be coordinated, and everything will go according to plan, hopefully. Miranda, True Crime Web, can you attend the Abby and Libby prayer walk on October 13th? That's another stop in, what's another stop in Indy? Unfortunately, I will be on another case October the 13th, a couple thousand miles away. What's your favorite coffee, Steve? Oh, Waffle House? No, what was that? Ronoco coffee I had the other day up in Missouri it was a little restaurant barbecue joint that I went to. Absolutely wonderful. It's probably in the top 3 coffees I ever had. I think Molly sent me where it's at up there. Mine is Death Wish. Only coffee that gives me a kick. Yeah, yeah. Anywhere falling off a 63-foot high bridge is not good for you. I don't care how soft or even how deep the water is. While it might be survivable, that's not something that we want to allow certain individuals have access to. And where Molly here says, I'd really want to see what's on the other end of the bridge. Where is down the hill? And is there more than one option? Also, would want to watch Richard Allen's reactions, body language. And yes, all those are good things. But is, some of his body language, reactions, and stuff, there's a playoff on that. But I see your point. And will they allow it? Just don't know. Olivia too says, I have a fear that jurors viewing the scene will confuse them. Um, you know, I think that they need every bit of information just as much as the investigators, prosecutors, and defense has. And I don't think seeing the actual thing, in my opinion, but you may be absolutely correct, but and it's reasonable to have that fear. And with a prosecutor say that yes, that is them going to that scene, there could be some confusion. You and the prosecutor may be on the same page. Shelley has been a member for 24 months. Always grateful for your hard work and dedication. Thank you. Appreciate your support. Thank you for your membership. Let's see here. Hopefully, I'm not missing too many questions. And Molly's correct that there could be some phobias. Miranda Lee, that's one of the points about if they have any type of disabilities. Molly says, from visiting that scene, would it be possible for them to have the jurors see every part of it by using four-wheelers or similar so they won't have to worry about injuries? Coming from the Logan property, there may be certain parts of that woodland down that hill where certain vehicles could uh, 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 enable them to be driven down there. We just have to see. But yeah, I believe that you can get certain vehicles down through there, those side by sides and things. Nanar says, I'm trying to remember if Murdoch was on the same visit, but I just can't remember. I can't either, but I don't think he was. He could have been. Yeah, vertigo. I would hate to have to stood on that rickety bridge with no railing. I would have gotten vertigo for sure. Yep, certain people do. Southern Gal says, True Crime Web, if Richard Allen did go to a crime scene, would he be in the eyesight of the jury? In my opinion, I would imagine seeing his reaction or non reaction would have an impact on it. True. And it depends on what the court wants to have and what the defense, because they've asked for Richard Allen to accompany. So they have a reason for that. So we'll just have to see. Miranda Lee for Doug Till. Thank you. What physical evidence has been collected at the scene? Has the prosecution submitted a list? The defense and prosecution, all of the actors involved in the court, they have the discovery. They know what evidence is going to be presented to the court and at the proper time. So we don't have the full list of physical evidence, although the prosecution and defense has all the reports and those. Olivia too says, I agree with Lone Wolf. That's what the law enforcement is going with. I hope I'm not freezing up. I could be. Um, actually, this is the last show I'll have on this computer. I had to go get another computer, so it could be my computer is freezing up a little bit. It's one of those things. Sammy Day says, Steve, is it possible? Is it possible there's evidence that would be presented by the prosecution that we have not heard about? DNA, web searches, clothing, etc. Absolutely, because we know even during one of the hearings that there was a transferring of some paperwork of some evidence that was critical and would have an impact on the case. I just don't. We don't know what that was, but we'll see. See through says, True Crime. What is your opinion on the phone movement? Do you think because the phone stopped moving, the crime was over? Um, I don't think that. I think that there was whoever was controlling the movement and it stopped. Was it one of the victims and it hit the ground and it stopped? Or was that by the placement of the offender? But no, just because the phone quits moving doesn't mean that there's not certain dynamics occurring within that crime scene that could be away from the moving of a phone. Um, and it could happen, like I said, the crime could have continued on for 30 minutes or an hour, even after that stop. It just depends on the timeline of when all the witnesses saw everything, the exact details of the movement of the phone, what apps are running, what did those apps show, what movements they were, and that will all be clearly understood by the jury. Josh the Posh, good to see you. Kimberly Lotz, good to see you. Now, this is the grandmother to Durante Martin. Absolutely saw her at the Capitol also last week when they up in Missouri. Absolutely wonderful family and have fought a huge fight trying to get justice for Durante Martin. And all these are great points that Fair Maiden Winds has. Think it would matter which clothes were wet and dry, were there winter weather socks, was Libby's feet cut from running away. All these things will be addressed in court. Is there mud? Is there certain transfers, certain injuries indicating flight with shoes off? All good points. I think it's what, like October the 14th or something when it starts. It's like the second week of it's right around then, I think. Mid October. It's supposed to go for 5 weeks, I think. Yes, and the logistics of taking the jury, absolutely huge. Mark, not the jury's job to investigate the case. That's true. They're not going to be investigating. They would be listening to all the facts of the case presented by the prosecution and facts of the case brought to by the defense. And they will have to listen to that evidence presented by the prosecution and defense and make a decision. But there's also, in my opinion, that visiting the crime scene will clarify some of the uh, possible misunderstandings of the distances, because some people can't relate distance to certain things, or they may not see it, or they may bring up a question that, with their full knowledge of all the evidence, that might absolutely convince them that no, Richard Allen didn't do this, or yes, Richard Allen did do this. And it's through that understanding and better clarifications that I believe that they should go. Ah, Bama Sin. Banter Lines. That's a great name. Steve, how do you feel when some creators think Allen is innocent, yet they hate the police and court? Um, each their own. Everybody has the right to certain opinions, uh, and they're, and I've always encouraged people for the fact that those who believe that they have evidence that, or their views are that Richard Allen is absolutely innocent, had nothing to do with the case, that they are a valuable part of our justice system. It makes everyone slow down and let's get this right. That just as much as certain people believe that he is guilty, that we have those opposing views, because the truth is in the middle, and you can only reach that through these debates and these point counterpoints. So I have no problem when you have people that challenge, just because a police officer says it doesn't mean it's absolutely gospel, because our court says that we have to have evidence supporting these facts. And just someone's opinion, and can, police officers voice opinions. If they're ruled as experts in certain fields, they have those opinions. Everything else has to be facts. So I don't have a problem when a creator thinks that Allen is innocent. I enjoy sitting down and discussing those. It's not a big deal to me. Matter when I was a kid, I'd done cartwheels across that rickety bridge. Oh man. Mustang 65. Mr. Steve, did you walk across the whole bridge? No, I went out about a third way across it. Mrs. Steve gave me the evil eye, and it was not pleasant. And so to I've jumped off bridges. I've jumped off buildings higher than that bridge, but and jumped out of windows higher than that bridge, backwards. Mr. Steve, do you actually think the trial is going to start mid-October, and do you plan to attend any part of it? No, I won't be able to attend a plan or attend any part of it. My last trip is this last case I've got out west. Um, there is the possibility that if I'm working a cold case because there's some more work to do in the Midwest, up in Missouri, on a couple cases. And if I'm that close and I have opportunity to run over for a day, I might do that. But it just depends. But I'm gonna be out west for a week or two on another case during the start of this trial. So we'll just have to see. Thank you, Mustang 65. Justice for Timmy Dees. Bama Sin says they probably want Richard Allen to go so he can act all decrepit and slow, so they think he couldn't have done the crime. There could be a lot of different reasons, and that could be just as possible as anything. Independent thinker, you Nightbot's acting up. Oh, Molly says Wi-Fi went bad. Man, Banterline says, I think the phone activated when the alarm came on. There's certain apps that can happen, or power downs or power ups um, of things. Sleuth Intuition, good to see you. Molly says, does the defense know all the evidence the prosecution has? Yes. If not, they're going to be in trouble. the prosecution will be in trouble. Josh the Posh, thoughts are with everyone affected by Helene. My family is in South Carolina. They are okay. Thank you for your support. And yes, if anyone can do anything for those in need, absolutely do so. Thank you, Barbara. Miss Cyrene, good to see you. Little J, bridge guy, not tall, actually short, in my opinion. You heard it. And that's one of the points that they're talking about. Bannerline says, I don't think Go will allow jury to visit the scene. That's right now. She says, let's let them get. She's not completely closed to the idea. She wants to see that jury first. And this is a critical fact that Molly brings up. Cannot do distance at all. Like if I was asked how far something was, I'd say 20 feet, and it would be 20 yards. Poor visual spatial skill. And Sammy, I've seen this exact thing. I've seen when juries get impaneled, and the defense look at the defendant, and the defendant changes plea because they didn't get the jury they wanted. DP, Mr. Steve, I have a question. Can the prosecution still put the penalty, the DP on the table even during the trial? There will be a time that will be. I don't know when Indiana allows that those that hearing to occur and when it will be offered. I don't know when Indiana's is. Different states have different things. Mr. Steve, you go to Indy, you better tell me. I will. Um, and Mark, yes, you're correct. The park, it isn't that large. I mean, you can walk. You could walk from the bridge to the parking lot in 30 minutes easily. And of course, now getting down certain areas and walking, um, extremely hazardous and could take a little while. But few hours, you're correct. It could all be covered in a few hours. Um, Cunningham, good to see you. Paul says, "Is this a DP state?" Yes, I believe it is. All right. Well, guys, I appreciate all y'all being here. And as I've said, if you have any information regarding this case, make sure law enforcement, prosecution, defense has that information. And for the fact for us to have justice, all that information has to be in the proper hands. I want to thank everyone that contributed tonight. Uh, as we go on the road next week, I will use that funding and look forward to getting this final travel up and get the all that taken care of, and then spend the winter working on some of this other stuff. But I got a lot of cold case work to do. But I want to thank everybody. You stay safe out there, and we'll see y'all soon, guys. Bye bye.